You just have to know the fears. Because remember, fear is not really a viable emotion. It's very compelling, but it's not an emotion. It's a reaction. Fright is an emotion. And fright only happens when there's a threat right there. If you're getting ready to step off the curb and a car runs a stop sign or a red light, there was a viable threat there. And fright happens very, very quickly. Fear is something that happens in the head. It thinks about all the things that could go wrong and projects them as likely scenarios. And then the mind receives back its own beliefs as if they are true. But it's all a concoction that the mind does. And it's comprehending mind. Because, see, comprehending mind says, I'll be safer if I'm aware of all these things that could go wrong. And if I hold them in consciousness all the time. Now, that's not really true, but that's the way comprehending mind works. It grasps its objects. And that's fine. If you're learning something, you know, a new skill or something, it's not so good if it's a fear. So I hope that's helpful, but I would say explore all of this. You know, this is your enlightenment we're talking about. You can't take your fear with you. Nobody can. But you also cannot cut through that fear until you know a little more about it, until you can see it's an illusion, because it's going on when there's nothing there to fight you. You know, I see people, and this is more in America here, where there's such an obsession with guns right now, and it's like hardly a day goes by without a mass shooting somewhere. And the some of you in other countries may not have heard about these things, but a young man went up to a door to his mother asking, would you pick up your two siblings who are staying with the babysitter? He went to the wrong door, and a guy came out with a gun and shot him. Didn't ask who he was, what he was doing there or anything, just shot. And so now that tells you that there was a lot going on in the shooter's mind. He was terrified that young man had ulterior motives and had a weapon and was going to use it on him. And so he better shoot first and ask questions later. If you're not dealing with this in your countries, you're very fortunate right now, because it's really putting a pall over the consciousnesses of many people. And so many more people are thinking there's a reason to be in fear. And so some are buying more guns because there's something out there to fear. I don't know what it is, but it's probably coming from me. And it's all a con that the ego is doing on the person. When a person runs around in fear, it's very uncomfortable. They're not able to relax into their greatness. They're not even able to see very clearly what's going on in the moment, because the fear takes up so much room. And so it's exacerbated for people in the States right now, because there's so much of it going on, and because the leaders in Congress refuse to do anything about it. And they have fears too, though. They are afraid they won't get elected if their base doesn't like what they're doing. And so they're run by fear. And when you begin to see the extent of it, it'll stop you in your tracks, probably bring you to your knees, that it could be so big. There's fear that the government's going to do something. There's fear that the other party is going to do something. There's fear that it is overwhelming. And what it means is people aren't in charge of their senses. They've given all that over to the part that terrifies them. And so this doesn't mean there's nothing dangerous out there. Indeed, it's dangerous to go to a mall nowadays if you live in the US, or it might be dangerous to go into a theater or a park or a church or a synagogue or a mosque. But you can't carry that around projecting it's going to happen. You kind of have to go and say, well, let's see. And then when you come back, you say, didn't happen today. Because that's planting a seed in the subconscious that something else is possible. And you owe that not only to yourself, but you owe it to everybody else, because your karma is not really separate from anybody else's, even though it seems as though it is. So this is a really important time, I think, for people to be looking at their fears. Most people don't want to look at it. They think, well, it's, okay, yeah, I'm afraid of the color red or blue or whatever. Oh, I don't like the color blue. That's the color of a police light behind me. And that, for some people, is an unacknowledged fear. But you don't want to, you can't carry that to your enlightenment. So you're going to have to get in there and dig a little bit to see what you're carrying. And right now, fear is big all over the world. But if you're in a war-torn country where two sides are fighting, you don't understand either one, and your home is being bombed, your whole city is being turned to rubble, and you don't have anywhere to go, we can understand fear. But there are people, even in that scenario, who are not controlled by their fear. They still get up and they start to clean up the rubble wherever they can. And they hope they'll have some water, or they hope they'll have some electricity. So even though there's danger all around, one doesn't have to be fearful. If you hear the whistling of a missile coming in, fright is appropriate. Head for cover. Or as what's the phrase, get the heck out of Dodge, to borrow an old US Western slogan. Yes, when something is threatening, fright is valuable, and it is a viable, instinctual feeling. Fear is not. And so when you're working with the heart, most people think fear is something that paralyzes the heart, because when fear is present, they can't be compassionate. They can't really reach out and love. And so it seems like that's a heart thing. It's not. But if you just let those fears, like bubbles, pop, then you're getting somewhere, because you're planting seeds in the subconscious mind that says, this is not going to rule me. But you're not going up against the fear with a big macho dude. I'm going to conquer this fear. It won't work. It won't work. It never has. And that is, in fact, that's why it's so big right now in the world. People have tried to conquer it by suppressing it, and it doesn't work. You have to see it and go through it. And I know that's difficult for people to understand, and there is not a 5-step program that you work to do that. The only way you can do it is using your comprehending mind to understand what's going on. This is how you use your comprehending mind well. We don't get rid of it. We use it. And believe me, when it comes to fear, there's a lot of uses that people could be putting their comprehending mind to. So I hope that's helpful. It's face it. Don't run away from it. And don't think you shouldn't have fear. That is useless, because then you just beat yourself up because you do have fear. Fear is something that, with the development of the ego thousands of years ago, came to be seen as what keeps people alive. But it's mistaken, because people had experiences that were frightful, perhaps with wild animals, perhaps with warring tribes. And they kind of crystallized that sense in their minds so they could pull it up at any time, thinking the fear would protect them. It won't. Hone your fright. If there's something dangerous in sight, you want to be aware of it immediately, and then let it go. Fright, you can let go of. Fear has real holding power. But we have to go in and kind of slice and dice it all up so you can see it and release it.